Okay, we're checking out a 2022 Audi Q8 here. This is the base premium model with the convenience package added on top. I'm going to quickly cover what's new here for 2022 and 2023. I'll put that up on the screen here, but essentially what you have to know is Audi has introduced a lot of great standard features for you for both of these two model years. And what that means is you can get this base premium and not really sacrifice much. You can get this base model, tack on maybe a few options like the convenience package or even the tow package to help this vehicle unlock its 7,700 pound towing capability. This vehicle, it's been out since 2019, but it still looks pretty amazing in my personal opinion. I think between the X6 and the GLE Coupe, I think this Q8 is the cleaner design. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I especially like this SUV from the rear end, and one of the other changes is, I believe it started in 2022, they made the 21-inch wheels as standard even with the base models. These wheels are wrapped at 285 wide tires in all four corners. That's pretty wide. But you can still get the black line package and get a different style of 21-inch wheels if you prefer. And that's going to cost you about $750. But more importantly, I want to transition over into this driving segment, and I need your help. If you are a Audi Q8 owner, please let us know your ownership experience in the comment section, because I've noticed some strange behaviors with this particular 2022 premium trim level Q8 with 4,700 miles on it. The suspension just feels clapped out. I have no idea what's up with that. And even the throttle pedal, I believe, it's making some strange noises. So please, I need your help from an objective Q8 owner or someone who's driven a few different Q8s. And I don't want you to just slander me on your Audi Q8 forums. Okay, I'm sick of that. You know, you try to do something noble for the community and, you know, the buying market, but all I get is grief from even the consumers. You know, they're like, oh my God, did you see what he just said about our car? You know, it's not even the 16-year-old kids I'm worried about right now. It's the 46-year-olds that's giving me the grief. You know, and I'm not talking about everyone here, obviously, but when you see some of these seemingly sophisticated people out in public with their fancy cars, don't automatically be impressed. You know, you don't know what some of these people are like behind closed doors. So that mini rant out of the way, let's get into this driving segment. All right, this 5,000 pound Q8 is motivated by a turbocharged 3-liter V6 engine pushing out 335 horsepower and 369 pounds-feet of torque. As you just saw there, this vehicle, it's got a bit of a delay when I floor it. I personally drive around in the individual mode. And the reason for that is because these Q8s, even these standard ones, come with adaptive suspension. You can move up to the prestige level of the Q8 and that'll come with air suspension. Of course, I haven't tried that. This is the only Q8 that I've ever tested. So I like to put the suspension in its comfort, and I like to put the drivetrain in its sportiest setting. And I want the sportiest setting for the drivetrain because that's another thing I've noticed with actually a lot of Audi products, especially their SUVs. Their engines and their transmissions, they're just tuned to be way more lethargic. I find myself flat-footed a lot, you know. I'm at a standstill at a light or something, and then I peg it, and then nothing happens for a good full second. Even right there, as you just saw, I have the thing in its sportiest setting for the drivetrain, and there's still a delay and a lag. And same thing with the paddle shifters, you know, they just don't react that quick. And this is where companies like BMW and Porsche, you know, the sister company Porsche, they do drivetrains way better. They react a lot more crisper, a lot sharper, while still being smooth. Because this engine, yes, it is smooth, that's great, but so is pretty much every other German manufacturer. Now, on the flip side, the Audi sedans, the A4s, A6s, A7s, and even the A5, right? all of these cars, they have a much better drivetrain tuning. They feel much sharper and much quicker. The main thing I wanted to address here is going to be this ride quality. I'm not even going to blame this Q8 completely because I feel like there's just something wrong with this car. Perhaps something with the manufacturing process, something's defective with this, because this is the first time where I've ever driven an Audi where the suspension feels completely whack and it just rides terrible, quite frankly. And no, it's got nothing to do with the 21-inch wheels, okay? I know a lot of old school people, they think you have to put 10-inch wheels on everything to make it ride good. That's not the case. Modern day suspension has come a long way to the point where you can be riding on 30-inch rims and the car will still ride reasonably well. Case in point, last week I just had a Porsche Macan with 21-inch wheels and it rode better than this, okay? It handled amazing, rode great, everything. There was really no compromises, even with those massive wheels. So that's not the problem. And I've driven other Audis, okay, less expensive than this, Q5s and A4s, A5s, things of this nature, and they ride like butter. No issues with the ride. There's nothing that feels weird about it. In fact, I've had a very positive experience with this brand as a whole. Smooth, refined, high quality driving experiences that hit way above its weight class. Those little $50,000 Audis, they feel way more expensive and premium to drive than what their price tag would suggest. So I was very excited to try this Q8. Since this is a flagship, right? About $74,000 the way that you see it here. But I remember when I was hustling this thing, I just chucked it into a corner and the throttle pedal or the steering rack, something made a strange kind of metallic, high-pitched grinding noise. No idea what that is, but this car has been doing that quite a few times now. So again, if you're a Q8 owner, let us know what that is, if you've experienced that before, and if you know what the fix is, comment. The drivability is there. This thing, you can hustle it through a corner. It's got the capabilities, right? This thing is glued to the road. None of that is an issue. After all, this platform underpins things like the Bentley Bentegas, Lambo Urus, and the Porsche Cayenne, right? So I expected a lot from this vehicle. I was just really not too thrilled about that suspension tuning. Another issue that this car has, which it's not the fault of the vehicle, it's the tires on this. This Hankook Dyna Pros are complete trash. I initially thought that these were run flat tires. They are not. They are traditional all-season tires, and they feel terrible. They feel worse than run flat tires. So these tires are lacking the smoothness, but the ride quality is still too choppy. It doesn't ride very good at all. There's too much of a jolting effect. Again, I feel like it's a manufacturing issue. I don't think every Q8 is going to be like this, but now that you know what my experience is, if you're going to be purchasing this, like you love it, you like the way it looks, just be sure to do a thorough test drive with this SUV, okay? My apologies for this interruption in the video, but I feel as if this is very important, and this is a good learning lesson for all of us. Every vehicle is just built differently, and it's not just with this Audi Q8. I've had this experience with other brands as well. Case in point, Lexus. I've driven multiple different LS models, you know, the flagship luxury sedan. I've driven multiple 460s and 500s. Some of them were dead silent and others felt like you were in a wind tunnel. I'm not even exaggerating. I have no idea. Some brand new LS models sounding like there's a tornado going on inside of the interior. It's just insane. And same reaction in the comment section. Some people have the issue, others don't. It's very bizarre. Till this day, I can't understand what the reason for that is. Mazda, that was another vehicle where I had a similar kind of issue. I think it was a Mazda 3, brand new, that I drove out of dealership. Had a creaky, rattly interior space. The interior is usually the best part about a Mazda, and in this case, it just wasn't, making all sorts of noises, right? But since then, I've driven over a dozen brand new Mazdas, and they all felt amazing, no issues. You know, a person asked me if I noticed a change in quality in the post-pandemic vehicles with all the supply chain nonsense and the shortages, and honestly, I haven't really noticed the quality go up or down, but there are variances between different models, as we just saw and as I'm discussing with you right now. Another theory many people had was, they think that the press cars or the review vehicles that journalists like myself usually get is somehow better than what a consumer would typically buy. But that's actually not the case. I remember getting a Ford Explorer that felt like utter garbage. I mean, the drivetrain didn't feel right. The heated seats wouldn't work. And then fast forward a year later, I get another Ford Expedition that responds amazing. Everything works, no problems. Very bizarre. This is just something that happens with every brand across the board. So it's not something, you don't have to get angry at me, okay? I didn't do anything. I didn't make any of these vehicles. I'm just reporting to you what I'm noticing. And the reason why I'm just going so hard on this is because this is a $75,000 Q8. There is no reason why this should ride worse than a Q5. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. So that's why I'm going so in-depth on this. And think about it, when people go out to buy some clapped out eco car for $3,000, they make sure that everything is perfect on it, with 200,000 miles on it. They don't want to see a single dent or scratch on the car. Well, these are very expensive automobiles, and we should all have an extremely high expectation out of them. That's why I'm being so critical. It's really honestly for your benefit, the consumer. That's who I do this for. I don't just do this for my own self-entertainment. I do this for people who are in the buying market. So hopefully you can appreciate that. Make sure you put it in all of its different modes, see how it rides and reacts, because I tried this in the sport suspension. My gosh, it is so jittery. The adaptive suspension in this does make a difference, and that's why I'm putting this car into its comfort setting for the suspension. But other aspects of driving this car are great. This is a very silent vehicle. We don't even have the upgraded double pane glass here. That's something that you can get with the Premium Plus model if you option in the executive package. That executive package will give you double pane glass, so that'll help make this vehicle even quieter than what it is right now. But even the way you see it here, not a lot of wind noise. The steering weight is perfect, just like it is in pretty much every Audi. It's the perfect weight, feels very fluid and smooth. I enjoy that. The brakes are great. It really stops this 5,000 pound SUV extremely well. I don't have a problem with that. Again, it's just this busted suspension. That's what I have an issue with. And obviously, the transmission programming isn't the best either. That's something where even the other SUVs like the Q5s I've tested, they don't have the best transmission tuning either. Their sedans are pretty much perfect. Here's a perfect example. I drove a Audi RS7, their most hardcore, like sporty, fast vehicle, right? Their sedan. Honestly, that vehicle was so smooth. It rode like absolute butter. It rode like a Mercedes S-Class, that hardcore RS7. Honestly, that vehicle rode so well, I didn't even care about its ballistic speed and performance anymore. I was like, how is this vehicle riding so great? That's with their sportiest vehicle, and it was such a sublime experience. So I know this company can do better, but just again, help us in the comment section with any of your ownership wisdom. And with that, let's go ahead and let's transition over into the interior segment, because I do really like this interior space. Okay, now that we are stopped, let's go ahead and let's talk about this interior space. The good news is I do typically like the interiors of just about every Audi. I like the way everything is laid out. It looks premium and it feels solid, most importantly. And that's the case with pretty much every Audi. And what I like is even those lower end Audis under 50 grand, even those feel really good on the inside as well. Now, something that people might love or hate is the dual screen setup that they have here for the infotainment / climate control. We have a 10.1 inch display up top with an 8.6 inch display below, which is used for your climate control features. I personally don't have an issue with this. I think it's set up extremely well. The haptic feedback functions work great. and it looks great. Obviously, is it the best solution? Of course not. The basic buttons and switches that they have in the Q5s and the A4s currently, that's the best way to go. That's my most favorite implementation for climate, but if you want to get bougie with it, this is a pretty good setup, all things considered. It's not really distracting me. That's why I don't really mind it. And the main infotainment, that's going to come with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. That works great, no issues. And in general, this infotainment is pretty excellent, logically laid out, easy to use. It's one of my more favorite ones. Unfortunately, none of this stuff is super reflective. They've done a pretty good job of coating this to where you can utilize this in harsh sunlight. But one of the cons is all of this glossy material means that you're going to notice a lot more scratches and dust particles inside of this cabin space. So it is imperative that you keep a microfiber cloth with you. The 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster, that comes standard with even the base model Q8s. That also looks amazing, great information, logically laid out, and easy to use. So the technology in these Audi/Porsche products, right, the sister company, all of this works great, no issues. Seats are reasonably comfortable. They're pretty soft and plush, but the lumbar support could be a little bit better. That's just something I noticed. Doors feel really solid. I really enjoy that. And this obviously being that coupe-like SUV product, we have the pillarless door design, and we do have your one-touch up and down windows for all 4 windows. And even though I said that we don't have your double pane glass, that's something that's optional with the Premium Plus. The glass that they do use here is still pretty thick, and that's part of the reason why this car is quiet, right, even at the highway speeds. The base audio system isn't terrible. Now, the 3D Bang & Olufsen that you get with the Premium Plus, that's going to be great. It's close to 2,000 watts, I believe. So if you really love your music, that's one reason to step up. But for most people, I think they would be satisfied even with this base audio. It's totally acceptable. The auto stop start function is pretty interesting. So we do have your 48-volt mild hybrid system, and that's supposed to help make the auto stop start really smooth, and it is. But one of the things I've noticed is if you have the auto stop start enabled and you get out of the vehicle for whatever reason, and then you come back in, put the vehicle into drive, it won't go into drive. You have to physically press the stop start button to turn the vehicle back on, and then you can put it into drive. Very strange. This is the first car where I've noticed that. It's an unnecessary safety feature, but more importantly, we do have your automatic headlights, automatic windshield wipers. All of the safety tech is pretty much standard, like the important ones, such as blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, and much more. Some of the optional things, like the convenience package, that's going to get you a 360 camera, which is nice to have, but this car in general is pretty easy to drive and to back up and to see out of, right? The visibility is excellent. The side mirrors do an excellent job. Same thing with the visibility out the back. All of that is good, and this is an easy SUV to drive. It's set up extremely well for that. The center armrest space is stupid. That's definitely a con. There's not a whole lot of space in there. The glove box is all right. We do have here a pano sunroof, so if you enjoy that, we have it here. The rear seat space is excellent. That's one of the big advantages of moving up from a Q5 to something like this. You have a lot more legroom and headroom back there, so you can really stretch out, and you also have your own climate control vents that you can play with back there as well. Those seats are also able to slide forward and back, and you can even recline them as well. The trunk space is massive, and of course you can fold down the seats and get even more space. And before we transition over into the conclusion segment, I just want to cover the fuel economy in this. This SUV with the 3-liter turbocharged V6, it's estimated to get 18 mpg in the city and 23 out on the highway. Fortunately, you can pretty easily beat those EPA figures. You can get maybe 20 in the city and around 26 out on the highway. So about 2 to 3 better than what the EPA suggests. So that's one of the things I do like about Audis. They almost always beat their fuel economy figures. If you don't quite need a vehicle this big, you could go for the Audi Q5, and I kid you not, that 4-cylinder in the Q5 and the A4/A5s, they get amazing fuel economy, almost like hybrid levels of fuel efficiency. It's just incredible. So that's just something to consider. Obviously the Q5, not quite as big as this, not quite as capable, since if you equip this with a tow package, it can tow up to 7,700 pounds. If that's important to you, then I understand why you would want to go with either the 6-cylinder Q7 or this Q8. But with that established, let's go ahead and let's transition over into the conclusion segment now. Okay, concluding thoughts. I really wanted to like this SUV because it just looks incredible, and I've just had such a phenomenal experience with the Audi brand in the past. Pretty much every vehicle I've ever tested, they're pretty much almost flawless. They're super quiet, super refined, ride amazing, you know, like that RS7 that I was talking to you about. And this being a flagship product, I was really excited to try it, but you know, the suspension just really let me down. And again, I really don't think every Q8 is going to be like this. I feel like this particular test vehicle just has an issue, a manufacturing issue maybe with the suspension. But if that got sorted out, this would be a pretty epic daily driver for sure. The only other thing to tackle now would be the drivetrain issues, right? Like how slow the transmission is to react. I've noticed that with the Q5 as well, and even the SQ5. That's where things like the BMW X5 really shine. It's got a really snappy 8-speed ZF, made it to that excellent inline-6 engine. The power here isn't the issue. Once you're up and moving, this thing's got effortless power. I think 0 to 60 is about 5.5 seconds. Power is not the issue with these Audis. It's the transmission tuning and just how slow it is to shift. In this segment, for 75 grand, I do think the GLE 450 with the thermally insulated glass, that's the highest quality driving experience in this particular class. I really enjoyed that vehicle. Pretty much no issues, no compromises, feels stable, looks amazing. I do like the Benz quite a bit, but unfortunately I don't really see too many good Mercedes-Benz deals, especially on GLEs, no real discounts. It's the X5 and these Q7/Q8s that you can get at a pretty reasonable price. But if you're tied to Audi, you must have an Audi, then something else to consider. You know, I've never had an issue with the Audi sedan, so if you want a stylish, practical Audi, maybe go with the A7. That's something to consider. It should drive better than this, get better fuel economy, and it should react better as well. That's just been my experience with the sedans. The A7's got a massive hatchback in the rear, so it's got plenty of storage space, but if you want an SUV, then yeah, you have to kind of step up to this. The Q7 can be had for less money, and you can equip that with the V6, because I don't recommend getting a 4-cylinder Q7. That's just weird. Yeah, 6-cylinder Q7 is a much bigger vehicle than this, but doesn't look anywhere near as cool as the Q8. I personally think saving the money, going with things like the Q5 is not a bad bet. You know, if you don't need as much rear leg room, Q5 is pretty solid. That's my look at this vehicle. Again, I'm begging and pleading to the Q8 owners, don't just slander me on your websites. Actually help us in the comment section and help potential buyers by letting them know your ownership experience. So with that established, I'll have my next video on the end screen here. Click on it and I will see you there.